So we've had the conversation before about how mathematicians are pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that we have these elaborate names for things that don't make sense. The midpoint formula is a formula to help you find the midpoint. And the midpoint means the middle point. So, by definition, the midpoint is a point, an x comma y. It's an ordered pair. It's a point on a line segment. But divides the segment into two equal parts. It's the middle. The midpoint is a point. It's an ordered pair, an x comma y number. On a line segment that divides the segment into two equal parts. It's the middle. Very straightforward idea. So let's start off with the basics. Are you ready? If I gave you the number 6 and I gave you the number 8, can you tell me what's in the middle? 7. If I gave you the number -10 and I gave you the number -9, can you tell me what's in the middle? -9.5.
Is this all our homework, just this?
Basically. But if I gave you the number 10 and I gave you the number 42, it's not as straightforward, right? I mean, sometimes, yes, finding the middle is easy. We just know it. But if I gave you the middle of these two numbers or values and asked you what's in the middle of them, what's the midpoint of 10 and 42, what would you do to figure it out?
I know.
What?
Like I would do 42 minus 10 and then you divide it by 2 and then add it to 10. That's probably a little bit complicated.
Okay, so you want to find the what of those two numbers? The middle, right? And to find the middle of two numbers, gentlemen. I mean, like, really, if I did 6 plus 8, you get what?
14.
Divided by 2 is 7. -10 plus -9 is -19. Divided by 2 is -1.5. It's the average of the two numbers. So we're going to take 10 plus 42 and divide by 2.
All I do is just know the number. Because I'm good at
10 plus 42 is 52.
26.
52 divided by 2 is
26.
26.
Ooh.
So to find the midpoint, it's finding the average of the two numbers. It's taking the two, the mean, adding them together and dividing by 2 because there are two values. So if you think that in your head, all it is add the two values, get a sum. Sum is important because it's the answer to your addition problem. You have to do the addition part first and get an answer. then divide by 2, because there are two values. You add the two values together, get a sum. You have to get the sum. You have to get the answer, and then divide by 2. If you know that's what it means, you're good to go. Now, unfortunately, right, we have to have a formula. This is not the formula.
Dang it.
So the midpoint formula is x from the first ordered pair plus the x from the second ordered pair divided by 2, which is the same thing. Add the two values, get a sum, then divide by 2. The first x plus the second x. Could you flip-flop those? Could you do the second x plus the first x? Yeah, because it doesn't matter the order that you add. And it's the y from the first plus the y from the second divided by 2. Now, here's the problem. The midpoint formula asks you to add the two values. Our last lesson on slope asks you to subtract. Now we get into the problem of people start getting confused. Midpoint is the average. And if you think about the average, that means add them together and divide by how many there are. Midpoint is the average. Slope is the change. And if you're looking for how much something changed, you subtract. Let's draw a quick graph. I'm doing 4 on each side. All right, let's do -1, -1. All right, -1, -1. And let's do -4, -3. So there's my line segment. You're going to see this on your homework. If you're given a picture, you have to find the numbers, right? So -1, -1, -4, -3. And then all we do is substitute. Let me color code this a little bit for you. Let's do the x part first. What's the x from the first ordered pair? Does it matter which one I pick as my first ordered pair? Not really. Let's say first is always the one on the left. Let's go left or right. Does that work? It doesn't matter because we're adding. And order of adding doesn't really matter. So what's the x from the first ordered pair? -4. Plus the x from the second ordered pair. Divided by 2. -4 plus -1 is -5 divided by 2. -2.5. Then we're going to go on to the y's. What's the y from the first ordered pair? -3. Plus, what's the y from the second ordered pair? Divided by 2. -3 plus -1 is -4. Divided by 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So my solution, my answer, my midpoint is negative 2.5, negative 2. And you're done. But I'm telling you guys right here, right now, you have to get your sum first. Because if you do negative 4 plus negative 1 divided by 2, and you're, oops, that's not negative 1. Negative 4 plus negative 1 divided by 2 in your calculator, you're not going to get the right answer. You have to do negative 4 plus negative 1, get an answer, then divide by 2. Because up here in this first one, it's doing order of operations first. It's dividing first. If you put it in parentheses, that's fine. Or I guess you could, if your calculator is able, you can do a fraction, negative 4 plus negative 1 over 2. Because if it's going to simplify your numerator first. All right, so let's do a little bit of backwards thinking. What if they give you an endpoint What if they give you an endpoint and they give you the midpoint? They want you to find the other endpoint. So what that tells me is I know, I'm going to draw a sketch. Doesn't have to be perfect. But I know that the, endpoint's right there. Negative 1, 9. And I know that my midpoint is negative 9, 10. Right? So that's half my line. I want to know, where is the other point going to go? My hand's blocking it. Where does this other point go? Right? So it's working backwards. I have the answer, my middle. I want to know what this endpoint is. Anna, what do you think you can do? If this is the endpoint and this is the middle, it's got to go this way. But it really doesn't matter. The picture doesn't really matter. The idea behind it matters. So what do you do to find this negative 9? What should you have done? Added and divided by 2, right? I should have added negative 1 in my mystery number. So negative 1 plus my mystery number and divided by 2, and I would have gotten what as my answer? Negative 9. So can you figure out what x value goes into this problem? Let's do inverse operations, right? Times 2, get rid of that number first. Your multiplier divide number. It's backwards this time, right? So I have negative 1 plus x equals what? Negative 18. So what does x equal? Negative 17. If you find the difference, right, from negative 1 to negative 9, what did you do? Subtracted 8, right? It got 8 smaller. So what's 8 smaller than negative 9? What's negative 9 minus 8? Negative 17. I have 9 plus my mystery number, And when I add those together and divide by 2, I get 10. So I'm going to multiply by 2. 9 plus something equals 20. What does y equal? 11. So my other endpoint is negative 17, negative or positive 11. Because from 9 to 10, what did I do? I added 1. So 10 plus 1 is 11.